How are you with consciously creating love and lasting intimacy in your life? If this is missing, or if you're ready to embrace more of it, then you are going to love this episode. I'm honored today to be joined by Dr. Elsbeth Meuth and Freddy Zental Weaver, who are beloveds, a husband and wife duo, as well as business partners and co-founders of TantraNova Institute in Chicago, Illinois. They have assisted thousands of couples and singles in creating lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their life and relationships. They are featured on Showtime's documentary series, Sexual Healing, and the Emmy Award-winning NBC show Starting Over. Best-selling authors of Sexual Enlightenment, endorsed by world-renowned spiritual pioneer Dr. Michael Beckwith. They got nominated as Changemaker at the White House-sponsored 2016 United States of Women Summit in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Elsbeth and Freddy.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Well, I tell you, I've been looking forward to this because I'm all about energy. I'm all about awakening and moving forth and really understanding what I'm feeling a lot. But this part about Tantra and this sexual energy is something that is a piece I've just been waiting to pop into my puzzle. So I would love to hear a little bit about your story and how you came together in offering this beautiful service to the world.
Wow. Well, we met 21 years ago, Teresa, in Chicago, and Elsbeth was on her own tantric journey, which she'll tell you about. And I had been practicing these practices since I was 13. Which is an interesting story, but shortly, a short version. I was 13, living in Hawaii, and going through my puberty, and my father at the time was a practicing psychiatrist, and he took pity on me because I was spending a lot of time in the shower. So he gave me a book to read on how to integrate sex practices and meditation. I loved it, my girlfriend loved it, and that was my beginnings of sexual meditation. I went on to college on an athletic scholarship. After college, I kept reading and doing workshops and learning more about this and applying it in my relationships. And I was in the software business for a long time. A company moved me here to Chicago. I was single. I was online looking for a female Tantra partner. And Elsbeth showed up and we met, and it was kismet. Thusly, 21 years we've taught and worked with couples all over the world and singles, books, tapes, television, and we love what we do. It's really a transformational opportunity for anybody in a body who's willing. So we'll get into it.
Love that.
So my story, Teresa, is very different. I'm just getting over a cold, so things are moving through me there as well. So as you can tell from my accent, I didn't grow up in the United States. I was born and raised in Germany and came to the States in my late 20s to do postgraduate work in music. And the way I grew up was like, I'm one of 10 children, post-war Germany. So, and my parents were quite religious. So there was around my sexual self, my intimate self, that alive life force energy that particularly, rises when we enter puberty. That was not something to be gone to. Actually, it was more like, wait until you're married. So, and then I always ask myself the question, whose energy is it? Does someone else have to come along so that I awake to myself? No, it's my energy. It has been with me from the moment I was conceived. And it will stay with me to the moment when I leave this planet. And life force energy is really an energy that is sexual in nature. So, but back to how I came to Tantra, it was actually, I had become a management consultant after, being in the United States, then also getting my doctorate in education. And then I moved on to consulting, had gotten really good at consulting, but was miserable in relationship. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men, which was very exciting at times, but most of the time I was alone. And when I hit 50, I really got confronted with that because I noticed that if I was going to change that trajectory, I would end up without having had lasting intimacy and love in my life before I leave this planet. So while I did have intimacy and love in my life, but I was not able to sustain it. So that was the moment in my despair that I said, okay, whatever it takes, Elsbeth, do it. And Tantra was a key way for me to tap into what I couldn't see around my intimate self, sexual self, relational self. And what opened up through the tantric practice and the tantric healing was that I got in touch with that I had held distrust for men, which I was not aware of. I mean, if you had known me, you know, at that time, I was charming, I was reeling them in. You never would have called me a distrusting bitch, not at all. But underneath in the subconscious, there was something hidden that was not accessible to my conscious mind, so I couldn't change it. However, given that Tantra, the practice of Tantra, taps into our energetic being, into our physical being, into our emotional being as an integrated way, I could access different dimensions of myself that were not accessible for me until then. And what showed up in clearing that distrust was deeper trust in myself, then more trust in men in general. And then Freddy came into my life 6 months later. And, you know, I think I would not have recognized him if I had not done my clearing work, because he was available and that didn't fit the old pattern. So I'm really glad that I did that clearing so I would be ready for the beloved.
Oh, I'm filled with chills at the whole story of both of you guys. And what comes to me is, so I met my current soulmate partner in 2017 that we talked a little bit about before we got on. And it was the same thing. He was doing his spiritual work since he was 18, 19. And then I was doing mine in my 30s and on. And it wasn't until just recently when I was clear enough, he was clear enough, and we were ready to come back together in union. And that's what it seems like for you guys. I mean, how you both had your separate journeys. And then at some point it was like, okay, it's time to come into union and come together and then move forward in what you're doing in the world, which is so beautiful. So I want to tap into the Tantra part, because when people hear Tantra, they think of, you know, like weird sexual stuff. And I do have some friends from through the years who are doing Tantra, and they'll talk about like, you know, kinky this or S&M. And I'm like, I'm just not drawn to that. But when I saw you guys and what you offer, the beautiful essence of energy that comes through both of you guys and your offering and Tantra, it's so different than what I myself have even been exposed to. And I would love for you to share a little bit about the difference between what you guys offer and what other out in the world kind of is out there for people that might give people a little stigma or a little like, you know, what is that all about?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing.
Absolutely. So we have had our institute here in Chicago for 21 years, and we're TantraNova, Tantra New, and there are many variations out there, as you know. What we are doing is working with the sexual energy as a doorway to get to what we don't see about what we're creating in our life. It's like if you do a lot of things and you see and you get actionable insights of how to shift something. Oh, I fight with my wife because I fought with my mother or whatever. How do we actually get to the energetic self that shifts that in the moment? So working with sexual energy it changes our whole experience. We are in an altered state when we're in it, whether you're doing consciousness work or not. We're more loving, open, vulnerable, receptive. Chemically, we're changed, more endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, the feel-good hormones. So with the distinctions that we share with people, which are part of the tantric practices, which was one of the original yogas of the energetic body, as opposed to hatha yoga of the physical form, and it's all energy, then you're able to, with the breath awareness, energetic awareness, muscle awareness, work with the sexual energy in a way that, again, allows you to get more connected to the things we don't see about an intention that we want to create more of in our life. And that's what we do. We've been doing for 21 years and get results.
So let's just broaden the horizon of what the tantric practice can open up for us. Because there are streams in the United States or the Western world that are pretty far away from the original intent of Tantra yoga. As Freddy said, the original yoga of the energetic body. And the energetic body can be distinguished in 3 dimensions: the physical, sexual, and when it shows up in the physical realm, we call it, the energy is called a sensation. I feel hot, I feel cold, I feel turned on. You know, these are all sensations. That is how energy shows up in the physical body. Then there is the emotional body: love, anger, hate, excitement, you know, which we locate like the whole emotional, like in the heart center. And then the 3rd dimension is the mental, spiritual, or consciousness one. And so we really, the whole purpose here of, in my eyes, of the tantric practice is to come into integration of the physical, sexual, the emotional, love, and the mental, spiritual. Because most of us grew up in a compartmentalized way. And it's not that we intend this when we come into this world, when we are actually pretty fluid and no compartmentalization. But then we are perhaps 5 months old or 5 years old, or things happen, we close off, we try to make sense of it. And that is where the compartmentalization starts, you know, like, I don't want to feel that pain anymore, so I just close off my heart. Or the disappointment, you know, in my first love relationship when the boyfriend didn't come back, or the girlfriend just, you know, was not of the same depth. So that is what we want to tune and clear, where we hold certain stucknesses in these different dimensions, so that we can come into our own God, Goddess, universal flow. That, of course, is deeply connected with our life force energy that is sexual in nature.
What's interesting, Teresa, is when you bring consciousness to the sexual, as we teach it, the kernel of that energy, which is creativity, it creates life and pleasure. Creativity and pleasure start showing up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex in the simple process of living. And that's when it becomes a path and a way of being. And that's the part of it that people often hear about, but they often will think about, oh, it's just a bedroom thing, you know, a trick in the bedroom. And so, yeah, when you learn what we're teaching, then it becomes another way of listening and being everywhere in your life.
It's a holistic way of coming into unity within, unity with another, and ultimately unity with the larger cosmos and with the planet.
And I feel that this is so profound and so needed in society, because I know for myself, when I went through my spiritual path and journey and my awakening, I was doing energy work, Reiki, all kinds of things, breath work. And all of a sudden, what people would sometimes call the Kundalini, that sexual energy, stirred and awoke. And I tell you what, I thought I was going to go crazy. Literally, like, I felt like a dog. I could go out into the street like a dog wild at night. And I had some clients I was working with at that time that I was doing massage with. And like 1 or 2 of them said to me, just out of the blue, hey, because they were tuned into, you know, what I was feeling and obviously what I was emoting, which was just absolute creativity, but very sexual energy. And they said things to me like, you know, hey, if you need to take care of that, you know, if you're not taking care of that at home, come see me. And so this is something that I think people to understand when they're awaking spiritually, that this energy is so creative, but so profound and so strong. And so it really can overtake someone. And so to me, accessing this the way you guys do, and the beautiful energy and keeping it in balance as we awaken, as we come into who we are as an energetic being, is so needed. Would you
It's
like to comment on that?
it's a powerful energy, and no doubt it is vilified and really misunderstood in the world. And yet it was around creating life before we had language. And if we look at the world and the warring in the world and the things that are happening, that we can, peace is just a thought away, right? And if we were more in a loving state of mind, which is where that sexual energy leads you, the world would be at peace, right? So it's really not about having sex necessarily, Teresa. It's about being what that energy leads us to. And in that being that energy, we find more flow, peace, happiness, joy in life. And that's really what the results are when you start doing the work.
Go back to your experience that you just described, where the energy became so strong that you didn't even have an awareness what to do or how to channel, or, And I think that is part of that. There are so many rules and restrictions and then vilifications, because it's such a powerful energy that none of us has learned to be with, to guide, to tune with, as a well, as a resource, because it's not only creative, it is so pleasurable, And if we don't bring our awareness, our consciousness to that energy, the energy has us. I cannot have the energy, just like I want to have emotional energy. When anger has me, I'm a slave to my anger. It's just as impulsive. There's nothing good or bad about the impulsivity. That is the nature of anger. I don't think about, do I want to get angry now? No, fine, the anger comes like this. If I haven't learned to intervene, to move with this anger, not to suppress it, then I either become, very resentful, or I'm just always angry all over the place and disrespectful, whatever. So translated this into the sexual energy, it's the same principle.
And, it's like angry energy. You can learn to channel that in sports and in, martial arts. But sexual energy is not something we've learned to channel. Either we keep away from it or we're totally full into it, pornography wise, as opposed to learning, in addition to all those things, learning also how to draw on it as a way to enliven aspects of our aliveness in our life and our being. And that's what's unique about what we're teaching.
Right. So the opportunity that opens up is, instead of being suppressed with that energy, as many of us are, or obsessed, it's like, how can we co-create with that energy? You want to see about the procreation of that energy and then how it has evolved?
Yeah. So what exactly?
The procreation and the recreation.
Oh, recreation, procreation, recreation. I don't know exactly what you're referring to right up, what you're referring to.
Okay, then I do it myself.
Yeah, maybe I'll catch on.
So for millennia, we have procreated with this energy. It's built into like animals. And then over the last 100 years, we learned more to recreate with that energy. And what we are bringing is, how would it be to co-create with that energy, both within myself, and co-create with that energy together? I cannot co-create with that energy in a conscious way with Freddy if I cannot do it within myself. It's not possible. So you can imagine that there is a whole way of learning distinctions, learning practices to cultivate that, And so in that sense, these tantric practices can take us to whole new places of fulfillment, of bliss, of joy, of connection, of peace, and then channeling that energy, creative energy, into what we are here for. It's not just for procreation. I can channel it into a project that I'm working on, or conceive of a new vision.
When we first started our work, I would say, I could see that this really work is about creating peace on earth. And Elsbeth said, well, don't say that to people, because people come like, oh, peace on earth, I want to have an orgasm. But once you get into the work, you see that it's really about peace in your life and in the world, and how we can be more creative and actualized.
Out of being connected with our orgasmic self, because that opens up in the body, in the heart, in the mind, in the spirit. So we live an orgasmic an orgasmic life. But that doesn't mean that I'm also always walking around like turned on, that I need to release it, you know?
It's understanding how to work with that energy, because it's so profound. And that's the creative aspect of it. That's our creativity. And I think that's the big part about what I'm glad you guys are on here today sharing this, because people do not understand how to access that energy, how to work with it. So talk a little bit about what are some of the things you offer people, the processes, or what type, if someone came to you and said, hey, I mean, do you work with singles? Do you work with, couples? How do you work in the world with your TantraNova Institute?
What about, Teresa, if do a little practice?
Sure. Yeah.
Before we go, who the people are who are coming, because I think that will give whoever's listening today or watching, it will give you a sense that like a first experience right over here. So if you want to sit, if you are listening here right now, just if you could sit upright, legs uncrossed. You do want to sit, not lying down for this practice. And you want to have your spine be erect, so that the energy that emanates from the base of the spine in a serpentine way to the top of the head, and on the exhalation back down again, so that the channel is open. So
your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus.
Beautiful. And then exhale all air. Take a deep breath in through the nose, down into the lungs. And when the lungs expand, the diaphragm pushes down, pushes the belly out. And on the exhalation, let the breath trickle down and out of your base into the seat. Again, a deep breath in through the nose, down into the lungs, all the way down into the belly, extending the belly like a big balloon. And on the exhalation, let it trickle down and out into the base. Now bring your awareness to your pelvic floor. And squeeze your pelvic floor muscles as if you were holding back the urination. Keep holding it. And then let the muscles go. Relax. Relax, let the pelvic floor release. Again, squeeze the pelvic floor muscle and hold it for a moment. Keep holding it. And release. Now, take a deep breath in again, all the way down into the belly, which then moves up into the chest to the top of the head. Now hold the breath at the top of the head and squeeze your pelvic floor. So you hold the squeeze and you hold the breath at the top at the same time. Keep holding it. Keep holding it. Then exhale the air. Keep the squeeze. And at the bottom of the breath, let the pelvic floor go. Let's do this one more time. A deep breath in to the top of the head. Hold the breath at the top, squeeze. Squeezing it. Hold it, hold the breath, hold the squeeze. Keep holding the squeeze and exhale. At the bottom, let the squeeze go. Now a deep cleansing breath from the bottom to the top. And on the exhalation, let the breath go. And while you continue breathing in and breathing out, just notice how your pelvic floor feels right now. The area in your pelvis, which is your sexual center, your life force center. And notice how the breath moves through you. And how your pelvic floor is now connected through the breath with the top of your head. And then come back by opening your eyes. And Teresa, would you be open to share a little bit how you're feeling right now?
Definitely. I feel more centered. I feel grounded, but yet I feel activated too, in a way of energetically, like I feel, yeah, like my core is activated and it's solid. Feels beautiful. That was only a minute or two, right? I mean, it wasn't that long.
Imagine if you do this for 10 minutes or so. But anyway, the point here is that right now we did it with subtle energy, because energy only flows through us with the breath. If we don't breathe, we die. It's rather obvious. So if they go together in dying, the breath and energy, they are one. They also must go together when we are alive. We put this to use here, the awareness. So when I breathe, actually my energy moves up. It does this already anyway, without me, just like the blood flow. I don't bring my awareness to the blood flow for the blood flow to move. It's the same principles. Energy flows through us all the time on the inhalation up the spine and on the exhalation down. And so when we bring awareness to it, we embellish the flow. While we don't generate life force energy, we can guide it. So if I can guide my subtle energy, just as you did it a moment ago, you can learn how to channel your aroused energy. So that wonderful experience in our sexual center then can be brought up into the heart.
And this is foundational for men, particularly because we are run by our sexual energy. You know, it starts out when we're little guys, look mild, no hands with the little erection. And then as adult men, we're run by the little head our whole lives, you know. So in one of the...
I've heard that, yes.
You've heard that, right? And you probably experienced it, it's true. So one of the primary edicts of all the variations of Tantra that there are is for the man to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And this very exercise that Elsbeth just led us through is one of the foundational pieces for men to begin to what I call sip on this orgasmic nectar, I call it. Because typically guys think of, well, there's the ejaculation and the orgasm and they go together and you can't separate the two. So when men really get that, oh, wow, I can actually get to that 7, 8, 9, 9 3/4 and play in that level and that wave where that orgasmic nectar can be going on for a half hour or 45 minutes. And I say, because once women's energy opens up, they can have multiple orgasms. So really men need to learn this to keep up.
Right.
But you know, and also let me say, and very seriously though, for men, this is part of the uncoupling of the unconscious, what appears to women often is selfish love, because that's just where we started feeling, and also a lot of the other craziness, jealousy, shame, possessiveness, guilt, fear, all the stuff that's there for man and woman, but particularly for men in terms of the new man and making more peace on earth. Men have to begin to integrate this masculine, feminine, yin-yang balance, and that's part of the new man.
And this is also being conscious about your energy and how you move with it and how you can create with it, and creating that lasting intimacy and love, which is what you guys are all about, right?
That's right.
And Teresa, let's be very clear about conscious is not cerebral. Very different, you know. Right. So it's the consciousness is the awareness, and that a man can forego the ejaculatory reflex that happens in the pelvic floor, master that reflex so that he can, as Freddy calls it, zip on this orgasmic nectar, connect with his heart, because then a man is grounded in his manhood, not driven by his manhood. And through that connecting between his sex and his heart, he becomes more integrated. And when he's connected with his heart and uses his testosterone energy to fuel his heart opens to hers. When she feels that, her heart opens. And when my heart opens, my sexual center opens.
Women can trust.
Yeah. So there's a whole other part for women that by men becoming more conscious of their wonderful, powerful energy and guide that energy for their own sake first, and then for creating conscious relationship, for us women, it's very much opening up into the feminine, where we can let go, where we can trust. Because for most women, that's not something that we do so easily, because that calls us into being vulnerable. And perhaps in the past, we learned I cannot fully trust a man just how I did it.
All they want is one thing.
Yeah, or just, it may not be even conscious, but it's like it's even a collective thing. It's not just one individual woman. I work a lot with women. I have a workshop which is called Awaken to Your Feminine Essence. At the very core of that is moving through the distrusts that we have accumulated over our life, first and foremost for our own sake. Because if I'm always at a certain level of having to be cautious, not consciously, I'm in a contracted state of being. So opening up, revealing myself, and I want to make sure that there is a man over there who has the capacity to hold space for me, to be present, to doing his own work, that we really want this to go hand in hand.
So I feel that the whole world can benefit from this work. But also, even though we can't get the whole world to come forth and go, hey, let's come to the TantraNova Institute, but each person that does this work on themselves makes a difference in the world. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Teresa, is that we're going to have to face this sexual piece, because we've gone through the sexual revolution, and now with the information dissemination highway, pornography is rampant, and it's almost like the little kid who wants to eat his dessert before his main meal, and as opposed to saying no, you let him eat as much dessert as he wants, and then when he's all filled up and sick from that, you say, okay, now we can try some vegetables and some protein and some other things, and they're open to it. So it's almost like the world is gorging itself on this sexual availability. And then it's like, well, okay, now what else is there? And so now we can learn and start to meditate with it and learn other ways of being better human beings.
Yeah, by shifting, at times we call it sex consciousness. So if I do my work, I become a different frequency in the world. And that affects others. Perhaps not that everybody knows, understands, but being in that frequency is a different kind of frequency. It usually has to do with trust, with openness, with feeling safe, with feeling alive, and feeling connected with self and with others. It doesn't even have to be explicitly communicated. It's something people feel, notice,
Yeah, see, this work could be taught to nuns and priests who are vowed perhaps to celibacy. It's not about having sex, it's about being what this energy leads us to, a loving, creative, intimately connected being. I mentioned earlier, when I was first introduced to this at 13, instead of just masturbating in the shower, I then learned how to breathe and do meditation with my sexual energy. And that opened up a whole new capacity of self-assurance, a capacity of inner listening, a way to be unencumbered with guilt or shame or fear around my sexual self. And I didn't have to have sex with anyone else. It was just a way for me to connect with myself. Actually, more young people should learn that, because they're all masturbating. It's like, why not learn how to be? And it's not about having sex with someone else. It's about being with your own energy in a new way that can revitalize your academics, your athletics, your way of being with your peers, and so on.
And the good news is that a lot of young people come to us in their 20s.
Lovely. That's great.
Curiosity, and we love to work with them, because, what about setting this kind of ground?
The next generation.
Yes. I would like also to add something here, because we've been talking about the sexual energy and, transmuting that energy. a big part of the practice is also the heart-to-heart connection, both the heart connection with myself and the heart connection with the beloved. And again, the breath is so at the core of everything that we have daily practices. Now, we call them tantric quickies. They are not sexual practices, that they are connecting practices for a minute or so that takes us out of the into here and here.
Mhm. Right. So what we do is we connect at the heart center with the hands, or we can connect here. Okay, heart center. And we look into one another's left eye, which is connective center of the brain, the receptive center of the brain. And then we breathe in together, breathe out together. We close our eyes, and then we visualize receiving on the inhalation energy from the heart connection with the hand from the other. On the exhalation, we visualize sending into the other's heart. And that's a way for us to stop the left brain analytical going and yammering and so on, to drop into just a breath and an awareness and touch. And then we go on about our day. So it's a way to reset. Yeah.
Beautiful.
In seconds, really. I mean, this is really something which we highly recommend to couples to be in that flow with each other, that infinity flow daily. Because intimacy doesn't just start in the bedroom. It's a moment by moment, day by day practice connection. So
I love that. It's funny because my husband and I oftentimes we do connect with our breath, but also like with our bellies. We'll just feel the belly and just like breathe together with the belly. So I'm so looking forward. I know I signed up for your workshop coming up on April 3rd, and I'm so excited to get some of these techniques and to embrace them in a different way with my husband. So I want to talk a little bit now about your Sexual Enlightenment book. And this is a dynamic book full of, you have techniques. You talk in there a lot about the chakras, the energy centers, love. I mean, this book is really, it's masterful, and it's a little bitty. It's not like a big old book either. It's mighty though. It's a mighty little book, that's for sure. I'm super excited. I've been reading it nonstop, and it's lovely.
We just got it out in Audible as well. So people who multitask, you can listen to it in Audible or
audiobook.
Audiobook, yes.
Oh, I just love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Teresa. I'm so glad that it's so useful. And it's a great way to get further background on what the tantric practice is all about, and particularly this building of awareness and consciousness around our sexual, emotional, and spiritual self.
And I think it's important too, for my listeners, because I have listeners all over the world, and that you guys are located in Chicago, Illinois, but you do have things online. And I know you have upcoming on April 3rd, you've got a beautiful it's a 3 or 4 hour workshop.
Wow.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the workshop that's coming up?
Yeah, well, that's a bodywork workshop, and it's for lay people. You don't have to be a professional massage therapist. It's really learning sequences of touch that really enhance connection, intimacy, and a release of lactic acid and tension in the body. So it's a sequence. There are different sequences of holds that it's an integration of Swedish, Tansu, and a form called a Thai bodywork as well. So,
so the tantric bodywork is very much about cultivating intimate connection, and to do this through the body, through the breathing, through a certain way of touching, as Freddy already said, that takes us out of the head into the heart, into the sensing within the body, because that is where pleasure resides. That is where withholds reside. That is where constriction resides, and that is where openings reside as well.
And that workshop is available for people who want to Zoom, so they don't have to come to a spot. They can do it in their home, as we're doing with most of our workshops, which are hybrid. Sometimes people are here, and other times people tune in from other parts of the world online. or participate, not just tune in. I mean, they're participating.
Right. And that's great to know, as well as this, like I said, a beautiful, powerful book that I will have all this information in the show notes that everyone can go and they can get the book. They can come to the workshop and learn more about your techniques and tools. And it's been such a pleasure having you both on today. I'm so glad that you came on and sharing this beautiful energy, your beautiful connection. And I'm just so thrilled. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa. Thanks for your heart.
Yeah.